I have, together with my practice, made familiar to me and to my aid the blessed infusions that dwell in vegetatives, in metals, stones, and can speak of the disturbances that nature works and of her cures, which doth give me a more content in course of true delight than to be thirsty after tottering honour. From Pericles, William Shakespeare. Chapter 1. The way how to distill a pig, good for those that are weak and faint and yet not sick. Take a pig of 12 days old or thereabouts, being scalded and washed, and take the forequarters and the feet thereof, and wash them in a pint of white wine, one after another, and let them soak a little in the wine. August 1646. She could still see the pig when she closed her eyes, still hear its pained, high-pitched squealing when she clapped her hands over her ears. He was splayed on the rough wood foundation of the gallows, sitting squat like a man on his haunches, his hind legs covered in a filthy pair of child's breeches. A blue coat stretched from his back to the ends of his hooves, pulling his forelegs into a shallow triangle. Around his neck hung a scroll delineating his crimes. The pig belonged to Mr. Grandley. He had been a good pig, Grandley told the judge, docile as pigs go and fattening up nicely, until the night the witches came. Grandley had heard the pig squealing, witnessed him dancing a jig and then running off to the woods to join the invisible witches in their unholy Sabbath. The next night, when Mr. and Mrs. Smith's youngest babe was found dead, his little neck snapped. Grandley knew it was his pig to blame. Grandley did not balk at offering up his hog to be punished for the murder. It would cost him dearly, but justice had to be served. He went to the magistrate with the pig on a leash. The trial of Grandley's pig was all the village of Bicknaker had talked about for weeks, even eclipsing whispers of the king's surrender to the Scottish army some months earlier. Young Mrs. Smith told the assembled crowd about leaving her newborn son in his cradle, the dog protecting him, while she went to the back of the house for some wood for the fire and a chat with her neighbour, then testified that she came inside to find her precious babe awash in a pool of blood, the dog nowhere to be found, the smells of pig and sulphur permeating the room. Mary had paid little attention to the trial at first. She had her doubts about the pig's guilt, having seen the Smith's dog viciously harassing sheep just 1 week earlier. The dog had been fierce, unhinged, maybe rabid. But Mr. Grandley was adamant about the witches, and the townspeople were convinced. Mary was dismayed by the whole affair. None of it made sense to her. She had lived in Bicknaker her whole life and been a healer, a cunning woman, as the villagers called her, for years. Her skill mostly involved cures for the body, but she had other remedies too. Lavender, for example, calmed the uneasy mind, and borage often soothed a broken heart. She had seen strange and wonderful things arise from her healing and her charms, but never had she witnessed anything that stretched the limits of her credulity as this had. Some of the townsfolk in Bicknaker, those with a more sceptical bent, had objected. The pig could not have run from Grandley's pen to the Smith's cottage with enough time to kill the baby, they argued, and thus the pig should be acquitted of all charges. Others pointed out that another of Grandley's pigs had been killed, and the piglet standing nearby was stained with blood. Had they colluded? It was all too suspicious. They had best be safe and put the piglets on trial too. Due to their tender age, however, the piglets were granted clemency. In the end, Grandley's pig was convicted of the murder of young John Smith, aged 1 month,